So early in the morning again, the rough edit is, or rather the edit is pretty much complete now. A few little tweaks here and there. The next thing I do is go through it and mark up the areas that need voiceover, typically the fast forwarded bits, which just aren't that interesting. The process has to be shown, but it's just not that interesting to look at. Go through it, mark the in and out points to see how long you've got, and write what you want to say during that time. So we're up in another part of the house where I record my audio. I've only moved here fairly recently, and this will become my sort of permanent sort of little video editing and recording space, and my office. Unfortunately, because it's in a little sort of alcove, a little sort of niche, the audio recording is absolutely horrible here when I'm doing my voiceovers, because you get a lot of echo, a lot of reverberation. So what I do is I have to pull the curtains to deaden things down a little bit, and also this is a cushion from some of my outdoor garden furniture. I know you can get sound blankets and all kinds of things, but this actually works really well. Let's just sort out this exposure, because it's suddenly, and not unsurprisingly, gone very dark. There we are, that's better. So this is where I do my audio recordings. I do this with open source software called Audacity. It's very simple, it's very straightforward, and does a really good job for the kind of things that I do. The microphone I'm using is a Samsung, I think. Yep, a Samsung Q2U. Comes in a package with a pair of monitor headphones, which are absolutely fine, for about 50 quid. If you're in the US, you can get the, I think it's Audio-Technica ATR 2100 microphone, which is almost identical internally to this. A lot of podcasters and sort of home recording fans talk about this as a great mic. For whatever reason, it's not widely available outside of the US, but the Samsung, this one is. So that's what I'm using to record this with. And really, it's just a question of getting as close as you can to the microphone and hitting record. I've got my script written, and we'll give that a go right now. 6:48. I've had the body of the column cut already, and here I'm carefully cutting the top and base to size, then marking out the domino positions. So with everything recorded, pretty much the only sort of audio editing that I do is just to chop out the the bloopers, the bits where you stutter or stumble or swear when you get things wrong. The one thing that I do, again, this is all in a very sort of controlled environment where we're recording the audio. The only thing I do is I normalize the audio, and all that means is it brings the peaks up to within a range that you set. It effectively increases the volume without making things peak. So we'll do that now, and it's just an effect in here. Effect, normalize. I need normalize to -2 dB, so it doesn't distort, and boom, that just makes everything just that little bit louder. Fully cutting the top and base to size, then marking out the domino positions. After that, it's a question of exporting the file, columns, and saving it out. So that's what I do for my audio. If it's not immediately obvious, I am about as far removed from an audiophile or an audio expert as it is for anybody to be. However, this is what I do for my little videos, and they seem to work pretty well. People are generally quite complimentary about the audio. I'm sure a proper audio expert would sort of rip the headphones out of his ears and go, ah! But, most people aren't actual proper audio experts. So there we are. I'll link up a few of the YouTubers that I do watch, but Curtis Judd Audio for Filmmaking is one who is particularly good, well worth a watch of his channel for his tutorials and how-tos. But yep, that's it up here for now. Now we go back to the editing part. Okay, so I'm back downstairs now in the sort of main office, and all I do is I bring that audio file into my editing software. I use iMovie. It's really great. It's really simple. Does pretty much everything I need. It's a bit weak on the audio side, which is why I do the voiceovers in Audacity and bring them in. It does have the facility to do a voiceover directly onto your timeline, but I haven't had much success with it, and I certainly get better quality using the microphone upstairs and Audacity than I do recording directly in. So all I do, this is our audio file, and we just drag that straight into the timeline here. This timeline is a bit complicated because there's a lot going on in this, because I've got 2 cameras, 3 cameras running in sometimes, and I'm pulling the audio off one to go onto another camera's clip, so it's a bit complicated. But this is where the benefit of time stamping your audio comes in. Normally I'd monitor this with monitor headphones. I've got the audio on just so that you can hear it. 6:48. So 6:48. That's where the audio goes in. I can clip that 6:48 part off, move them out of the way, and that's the extent of the audio. I've had the body of the column cut already, and here I'm carefully cutting the top and base to size. So we're just about ready to do our thumbnails, but before we do, we just need to sort of go back in time for a minute and have a quick look at something back in the workshop. So with all the workshop stuff done, this column is pretty much ready to go to be shipped off and be sprayed a nice glossy lacquer finish. It does present us with a bit of a problem though, because obviously I've still got to shoot thumbnails. I shoot a still image for a thumbnail because it looks good. I do them in high res because I like the thumbnail to be the first couple of seconds of any video, then you don't get a weird still with you going. But of course it requires the finished product. So what do you do if the finished product is sort of a cack brown unfinished MDF? Well, I don't know about you, but what I do is I'll make another one. Now, I made this one just during the downtime of while this one was being produced, so while I was waiting for paint to dry or whatever else. This was done really quickly and easily. This is actually 12mm MDF with a slightly shorter baseboard on it, skirting board on it. It's just pinned together and glued and then painted white. It's a bit shorter because I'm going to shoot the stills of this in my house, and I don't have a house of a grand scale to accommodate something like this. Plus the idea of having a slightly shorter one was that maybe you could use it as a sort of a side table alongside a sofa or an armchair to put your bowl of peanuts or the TV remote or whatever else on there. So I'm going to do a couple of still images like that, and I'm going to take this back across to my house and try and get a few decent pictures of it there. Okay, so we're back in my office at home. We've wandered around my house, taken a few still images. If it's not obvious, one of the problems with shooting stills for video is that if you make a lot of tall things, as I frequently do, alcove units and bookcases and that sort of thing, columns, the image that you've got is actually quite wide, 1920 by 1080 pixels, and in fact it's made even wider because of the way I do my thumbnails. I have the top section full of text, so it's pretty much 2:1 letterbox shape, which is really hard to fill in some ways. Anyway, what I've done, as you might imagine, I have a sort of standard template set up already in my image editing. I'm using Pixelmator because it is cheap, to be honest. I've paid over and over and over many times for Photoshop, and I'm not doing that anymore. So I'm using Pixelmator. Works fine. Perfectly happy enough with it. And what I've done is I just drag these pictures in. I'm going to do this one now. One more. One of the things I'm doing here, as well as trying to find a good shot for the thumbnail, I also want to have 1080p shaped pictures to go at the end of the video, so I can sort of scroll through those, fade in and out to those while I'm doing my little bit of wind-up chat. With the thumbnail chosen and added to the timeline, I can render out the video file, write the description, add the links and show notes, and upload the video to YouTube. Simples. So that's it for this week. The column is long gone. It's been shipped off to the spray shop, where it's being sort of lacquered in a jolly shiny colour. If you've stuck with me this far, I hope you've enjoyed what you've been watching. As I said at the top of the videos, not a lot of actual wood butchery in this set, but construction of a different kind of how I make these, how I actually put these videos together. And I hope you found that interesting. I've deliberately not gone too deep in things like editing and audio recording, mostly because I'm no expert, but also because it is a bit of a minefield, a bit of a rabbit warren where you can very much get lost down there. There are many far better qualified people on YouTube than me to talk about that. Hopefully throughout the course of these videos you've seen me use just about every piece of gear that I own, from a couple of shots in there on my phone. There's the under £100 compact camera with onboard audio, a few £100 bridge camera with a £20 shotgun mic, through to this sort of DSLR that I'm shooting on now, all told about sort of £1,500–1,600 in total. And you could spend far more than this on stuff. Obviously, the more you spend, the less you get for it, diminishing returns and all that. So you've got to decide what suits your budget. But hopefully what's come across is that if there's anything holding you back from starting a YouTube channel, it shouldn't be equipment, because you can shoot stuff on your phone and it looks great, sounds great. A few other guys that I watch, I'll link them up in the description below, but Curtis Judd Audio is very good. This guy called Basic Filmmaker, who is also very good. DSLR video shooter Caleb Pike is very good, and I think it's DSLR Filmmaker, who is also very good. Most of those guys are American. Absolutely nothing wrong with that, but just be aware that when they talk about gear reviews and equipment, we don't always get the brands that you get in the US, so you have to temper some of what they say and what they recommend with what's available to us. Anyhow, that's it for now. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up, share it amongst your friends, and please do consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. Thanks also to everybody who supports me on Patreon. www.patreon.com/10minute workshop is where you'll find me and where you can help me out by helping to keep the lights on by making whatever donation you can. It's always appreciated. Thank you so much to everybody who does that through the Patreon process, and it's great to get that feedback as well. But that's it for this week. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Take care.